Today is May 9th, 2024. It is 4:01 p.m. and this is a Windham Elementary School Board of Directors meeting for the Windham School District, and the meeting is being called to order. Prior to kicking off with public comment, I want to make a few things clear as I've received quite a bit of feedback about the orderly running of these meetings. And so as has been detailed on the agenda, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per comment. If folks have the ability to turn your camera on, that is really helpful with editing. So if you are able to during public comment, please try to consider that as an option. And also when we get to the business items for whether it's old business, new business, anything on the agenda, the board will be having our discussion, but also after that is done, we will then take discussion or comments from the community and the public, but that will only be limited to one time and for 1 minute. So hopefully with this structure in place, we will have much more decorum and be able to be very efficient in how these meetings progress. If we continue to have outbursts where people are interrupting or unmuting themselves and really impacting the orderly running of the meeting, we'll have to implement different tools that are available to us through Zoom. But I don't think that we're there, and hopefully this is just going to make it just easier and pretty structured. So with that, we can move on to public comment. Are there folks with public comment? Okay, see Bill Casey, and then is that Crystal Corview? I believe so. Bill, go ahead first.
Which David Osborne.
Russ, please mute yourself. Bill, you are muted if you would like to speak for public comment. You're still muted, Bill.
I can, let's see, maybe that'll help. Oh.
Well, we'll move on to Crystal, and then maybe once Crystal's done, Bill will be able to unmute. So Crystal Corview, go ahead.
My public comment really has nothing to do with your board meeting. I just want to let the public know that on Saturday at Leland and Gray, there is an event. It is called Dingers for Dylan. It is an event in honor of a Leland and Gray student who was lost in a car accident. It's a great event. If you've never checked it out, there is a JV softball and baseball game at 11 o'clock. The event will happen after the baseball and softball game. It raises money for a scholarship for a trade school to a graduating senior. So if you have not checked out this event, please come and check it out. This is, I believe, the third year in a row. It's a lot of fun and it's for a great cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Excellent. Bill
Thanks,
Casey,
Crystal.
your hand was down. And
Well, it should be up.
okay, but you're unmuted now, so go ahead, sir.
Yes, I am. All right. I want to encourage the board to go to Australian ballots for this voting, to give everyone who's around a chance to vote. And it's vacation, holiday time coming up. People are leaving, doing things. There's weddings, etc. And I think it's totally unfair to not use Australian ballots. The school is allowed to do it. The town is set up to do it. It's not a big issue. And it should be adopted to let everyone have their vote counted.
Yeah,
It was brought up before and ignored. I
Good.
don't think you have the right to ignore something.
All right. Let's get back to the rules about public comments. Yeah, we will have to take actions, mute further, but we did look into it actually, and it seems like we can. So you're right, and I also agree with you. I think that we should have Australian ballot. What we found was that logistically, it would take about a month or more because you have to, for a Australian ballot, you have to do an informational meeting as well as have the logistical work of sending out each of those ballots. And that usually takes somewhere between a month and 2 months. So for our runway, we just couldn't get it done in time.
The town voter official said she can do it in 3 to 4 days. Everything could be done. It could be accomplished. If you talk to Ellen, she will tell you that. She told me that today.
Okay, well, we're getting a bit different information. So
Okay, so would like to remind folks too, is public comment is not a Q&A, okay? So thank you for bringing that up, Bill, that it is something that we can further look into. I'm seeing the town of Windham next for public comment, so I'm gonna guess it's probably maybe Ellen speaking to that. And then we're gonna continue with public comment and move on with the agenda. And public comment should be not public comment, disregard. So let's just move along. Ellen, go ahead.
Video. It is me. I'm here at the office. And ballots don't have to be sent out for. There's no requirement for that. That's something that a select board or a school board has to decide that they want to do and that they want to pay for. Otherwise, people just call or come in and get their ballot, and it's done just like it is for a presidential primary or a state primary or a general election. And the warning, I don't think, has to be any longer, but the ballots do need to go out at a certain point, and I would have to look up how far in advance. Or be ready. They had to be available. I don't know if it has to be any more than 30 days or not, but right now there's no ballot. So,
yeah, Ellen, if you can do that, if you could do that legwork, to kind of give us guidance here, I totally would be down.
it. You just Google it.
Well, but from the town of Windham.
It's in the state statutes what all the rules are. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Maureen Bell, you're next.
Yeah, I might be incorrect in this, but I think if this is considered a revote, and I'm not sure that it is, it's to be handled in the same manner as the original vote, if I'm not mistaken. So you should look into that as well.
Oh.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay, are there any other hands up for public comment? All right, then we will move on to changes to the agenda. Are there any changes that any folks would like to add? Oh, Bob, go ahead.
Sorry for the late notice. I missed this when Dan and I were talking over the draft initially. You guys tabled appointing a truant officer, which is a statutory thing in your organizational meeting. I think you also tabled it
I
in
raised my hand.
so that's something that still needs attention.
Okay.
And then as far as the approving minutes go, I just want to point out on here we have 426. Those minutes I don't think were in your packet. I think we don't have those yet. I could be wrong. But the 411 meeting minutes are not listed here, and I believe those are still in draft form because I don't think you approved those at special meetings. I think you had to wait till this one to do it. So I'm just not sure what you had in your paper packets there, but what you should be doing tonight is 411 and 418. I don't think you have the 426 ones, and if you do, the SU does not have them. That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Bob. I'll see what happened there, but regardless, we'll forward it and we'll just get them approved next meeting, if so.
Okay. Sue's got a hand up. Oh, go ahead, Sue.
couple meetings ago, Bob was gonna look into the Australian ballot vote for this vote coming up.
So did you hear that, Bob?
Yeah, we were trying to set up a conversation with the attorney to talk about a couple things, and then the board moved to talk to Mark instead, so I was not involved anymore.
There you go. Okay, so we've moved on to correspondence. So for correspondence, Daniel, is there anything that you could shed some light on as far as correspondence? And again, correspondence is going to be stuff that this is where I was getting caught up on public comment earlier. That is not stuff that's already on the agenda. So if there's things, Daniel, that correspondence wise that you can think of that we're not likely going to be discussing already on the agenda today that we could bring up. I know one thing I could think of may have come from Ellen, was on the agenda itself. There isn't a phone number listed, so that people who do not have computer access would be able to dial in with the phone number. So I think that that's a reasonable change that we can make sure going forward that that's included on the agenda. But other than that particular thing, I know you had some correspondence. I saw responses with folks. Is there anything that's not on the agenda that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, it's something me and Bob talked about is that we've had a lot of correspondence in the past month, and not sure how to not to stretch this meeting incredibly, but also recognize some of it. So, Bob, what are your thoughts here as to how to approach an influx of a lot of correspondence?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's new to me, obviously, but I do think if someone is tallying the list of correspondence as they come in, and it could be something as simple as email from so-and-so on this date, email from so-and-so on this date, and then acknowledging the receipt of those, I think would be in the meeting would probably be best, so people know that they've been received. Whether you choose to act on them is within your discretion to take what they're talking about, if it's something that's actionable, and put it on the agenda. But the board controls the agenda. So if the board chooses not to put it on the agenda, they can just acknowledge it's been received. But it should really, someone on the board should be tracking them, I think is probably the best way to say that. Maybe you guys have a shared Google Doc or a Google Sheet that you track them on, so that, because some of them might come to just one of you, some might come to all of you, just so it's hard to know. So, but yeah, that might be a way to track it. And then you're at least able to say, we got Crystal's email from this date. We got Russ's email from this date. Acknowledged. Thank you. And if you choose to take something from either of those emails and put it on the agenda, then you can specify that and say, we've taken this item and we're putting it on the agenda. So that would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to add to it, I agree. I think it's something I reached out to the VSVA when we first started, of some type of board shared comments. I pointed out there was something that Rich had, Rich Warner in Wardsboro, that goes to automatically pops it into some type of directory. So maybe I can reach out to him and see, hey, is there a way to just automate this and put it in one place, so all the board can see all the same information regardless of who is tapped on by whom. So yeah, let me explore that. But as of now, I don't have any correspondence to share.
And yeah, I think a lot of the themes anyway was information being on the WCSU website. I believe all that is on there that was requested via email. So that's kind of all that I really have as well. So moving on to old business. Oh, changes to the agenda. We didn't finish that. Bob, you had mentioned that, and I moved on to correspondence. The changes to the agenda, I'm going to say that we would move the motion of all of those minutes just to the next meeting, because if we the 26th isn't up there. I just want to make sure we're putting them all through and everyone's really gotten a chance to look at it. So I'm not seeing it in the packet here as well. So I just want to make sure we're making good calls with the minutes, and that is good to move forward. Also, given that we need to warn an article or articles, I would like to kind of bump that up, the budget discussion, and decide, because I think, Rory, did you potentially have to leave early?
I definitely have to leave early.
So if Rory has to leave and Daniel's sick, and if we are warning for a date, then we have to sign and get that warned today. And my understanding is Ellen's going to be at the office till 6 today. So I'd like to have those conversations as soon as possible and get that figured out, so that maybe Daniel, since you're home, you could email that to Ellen and she could print it off, and Rory and I can run over and sign it before the end of the day or when she leaves, if that makes sense. Oh, you're muted, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. So the FY23 final audit, is that what you're thinking? Let's push that up, as well as warn, and then add to the agenda a new date for the revote.
Well, let's establish the date. Like, I want to make sure that we're establishing the date and warning it. So,
Okay, so let's add to the agenda first discussion about a new date for the rewarn, and then let's move up the final audit approval, as well as the adopt residency policy.
okay.
And then afterwards, we can do budget discussion, principal report, superintendent report, et cetera.
So the adopt residency policy you want with the budget discussion?
I was just
New
thinking of,
business going into old business, or you're saying kind of like putting that in front?
yeah, just to get all of the things that Rory may want to weigh in on and motion and approve as well.
So now that we've got that squared away, is there any other changes that any of us could think of that we would need to make? Perfect. Okay, so new date for the rewarn. There may be, I think what would be smart for us to do is, if we're going to be further looking into Australian ballot, if that's something that's feasible, we can make that change. But if we have no other option, like Maureen had mentioned, we may be obligated to continue with it's a revote the way it was a floor vote before. So we will have to get that warned today. So in my communications with folks, the best available day for people to be able to pull this together was, I believe it was June 8th. Is that what it got changed to from the 15th? Because the 15th wasn't available. So
That's right.
Great, thank you. So June 8th and 10 a.m. At the meeting house, it would be available. The moderator is available. So would we like to, do we need a motion to make this change? So I believe we would. So I guess I will motion to change the date for the vote to June 8th at 10 a.m. at the Windham Meeting House. Can I get a second?
A second.
Rory seconded. All those in favor, or any discussion? Crystal?
I just have a quick question. Are we changing the date because we didn't give the 30 to 40 days warning? Is that why it's getting changed?
That is, we're changing it to make sure that we are well within that timeline, correct?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, so that is changed to June 8th, 10 a.m. Daniel, if you have a chance to maybe make that adjustment and send that over to Ellen. This way, if Rory has to leave, Rory, would you be able to swing by there and get it signed before you go?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
fine.
immediately do it. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I was just gonna say the draft that you had sent out, Dan, I think had both dates in it, and I'm sure that was just because you're trying to figure out where to put stuff. So
Oh, okay.
just make sure you adjust it and take away the May date before you send it to Ellen.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good looking out, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll work on that now.
and then budget discussion or approve financials, or should we move the budget up to above that? My arrow.
I was thinking we do the final audit, approve final audit, so Rory can be there for it, and then the adopt residency policy as well. I know we're
Okay.
shifting stuff around. That's just because of circumstances.
Okay, so we are gonna move on to approve the fiscal 23 final audit. So moved.
Rory can, or sorry, Lori, can you give us some information? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry you're not feeling well.
No, it's fine.
Sure. Just a quick, this is a very high level overview. I'll be really quick about this. Is that the audit was extremely late this year, so I apologize for that on behalf of our auditors. The beginning of the audit, which is available on the board website, so you should all have access to that, it just speaks to the governmental accountability. And it explains that there's two views to a governmental audit and how that works. But really, we look at the statements. That's where I usually spend most of my time, is in obviously the financial aspects. So statements C and E show an ending fiscal year 23 deficit balance of $29,217. So that will be carried into this current year that we are working on now. And that will have to be taken care of probably in fiscal year 26 budget when we start building that. There's some options that we can go into when we start building that budget as to how to satisfy that deficit. It's it's large for Windham. It's not a large deficit in general. Statement D does reflect the capital fund and special revenue funds. The capital fund has that balance of $95,000, which we're all aware of. And the special revenue funds showed an ending balance for 23 of $14,788. That money has been used for fiscal year 24. It actually offset some of the, in the beginning, it offset some of the teacher costs. So that will not be, that will be used up at the end of fiscal year 24. Let's see. That's pretty much it as far as the financials are concerned. Again, we can talk more about what to do with that deficit. I've been talking with the auditors. There are a couple of different things that we can look at when that time comes.
So in terms of covering that deficit for next budget, it would probably be ideal for us to have 30,000 available to cover it, or I guess we can get into that as we get further along in the year.
Yeah, we can. So, the public needs to vote to move the money out of the capital fund, as we've discussed before.
Yeah.
But that can be done at a later date. That also can be done when the fiscal year 26 vote happens. We can make that transition then as well. So we could put that on the warning to move that money out to cover the deficit, actually, because we're not sure where this year is going to end up. Right now, I did send that information out. It's really, you're running just about on budget, probably going to end in a little bit of a deficit. There's been a lot more legal fees, some insurance claims for litigation and that type of thing that has that I just couldn't predict that it would be as much as it is. So probably going to add to that 29,000. So that's why I'm saying I think it's best to just, wait till we get into the new year, determine what 24 is, how we end in 24, and then make a plan to take care of that deficit. That makes
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I motioned to approve the audit. Is there any further discussion regarding that? Daniel or Rory?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all those in favor?
We have to second it.
Aye.
Who seconded?
Do you want to second it?
Sure.
Rory seconded. Daniel said aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved. Motion passes. Okay, so that is gone. So the budget discussion. Lori, will you have the floor? Go right
Sure.
ahead.
Do you want me to share, do you want to share the screen, or do you want me to share my screen with the new budget?
Yeah, I can give you
Revised? Okay.
yeah, I can make you. Let's try this. If I make you co-host, do you have sharing ability?
I should. Let me
If
try.
you click on share screen, Dan, there should be an option for multiple people to share at the same time. If you just click that button, that will allow her to share.
I think I've got it. Can you guys see the budget?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, everybody on screen can see the budget as well. So we reworked the budget based on the warning that was approved, I think on 4/11 or 4/18. I'm not sure the dates now, but it was $546,344. That was expense, right? That's what we're doing. We adjusted the lease revenue to reflect the expenses in the building ops. So, I think, Daniel, you could probably speak a little bit more to this, as I haven't been part of all the conversations because I wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah.
But you want to go ahead and speak to that?
Yeah, and actually it's kind of an oversight on my part. So I originally had 11,000. When I sent you a expense report draft, I lowered the amount of the building by a percentage, but I also did that on the lease side as well. So I think what I'd like to do is, if it's possible at this point, to bring it back up to 11, because what I was assuming is that we're going to be running a quicker timeline through FY25 to not hold on to the building, but to establish a roadmap, do surveys, engage with the select board. And so that's why I was going with a percentage base across the board with the building, the operations of the building. But is it possible to bring that back up to 11 and then bring the education spending grant back down? I think it's like
Sure.
515 or something.
Yeah, we can do that. Revenues don't have to be set until the budget is submitted to the state, because remember, the voters are only voting on expenses, right? So we can make that adjustment without any problems. And I can do that for your June 8th meeting, so you have a complete picture.
Thank you.
So other than that, and there are no other revenues that we made adjustments on. I did make some adjustments on the tuition students because we know now a little bit more where people are enrolled so far. So that's the number that it came in at 401, which is 15 students at Townsend for $18,200. 7 students at the statewide average. That's what SWA means. So still at the 22 students. I feel it's prudent to have the 22 students in there. Typically, what I have seen in my past has been that if you have a town that tuitions students, it can be very variable, and you do not get the full count of the student until the 2 years down the road. So that's why we left it at the 22. Nothing else really has changed except for, based on the town meeting, the town voted to increase the pay to the school board members. So I adjusted that. So that was current, because we know, I knew it going in. And then we made some building ops. We reduced those down. So that's really all the difference that we've made. So the budget balanced at 546, 344. Does the board have any questions for me?
No, it looks good. Thank you
Looks
for
great. Thank you, Lori.
Lori,
thank
what
you
did
for
you
working
say?
with us.
Sorry,
Sure.
Lori, what did you say the last thing you adjusted was after the, was it building maintenance?
Yeah, the building ops, really, we just kind of looked at, all of the building ops and made some adjustments there where we could make adjustments.
Yep.
And so I'm gonna switch screens to the summary that has, the potential tax rate on here. I hope this will work. Do you see it or do you still see the budget?
And the other thing I'll say is we kind of did some balancing, like a final balancing line with the legal fund. So instead of 6,000, it's like 5,700.
Right. Yes. Just to make the math work. Do you see the summary sheet that has the tax rate on it, or do I have to do something different?
No, I see
Yes,
it.
you do. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this is, where you want to increase those offsetting revenues, Daniel. So we'll do that in the next, in what goes out to the public. But
Yep.
I also wanted to point out that the yield bill, I don't know if it's passed yet. I know no, it's not passed yet. I didn't think so. I knew it's still up in the air, but the last time that they ran the figures and added in the extra revenues that they've found under the pillows, I guess, up at the state, they're coming in with a little higher yield, which is great because it brings down the tax rate a little bit.
Yep.
Just really, it wasn't that, significant, but every little bit helps. I still don't know what the true CLA is. I'm not sure if Russ has that information or not, but this is where the tax rate is coming out without the additional revenue for the lease and with the increase in the yield. So before CLA, $1.58 basically, and after CLA, $1.66.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing because that's all I have on the budget.
Okay. So with that, is there any questions from the board? Anything that we need for Lori? We're good. Anybody in the audience have any questions for Lori? No? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you very much. So that was the budget for adopting the residency policy. So
I believe this was a two-step process, right, Bob? We prepped it for this meeting and then we can finally adopt it in this meeting.
Yep.
Or sorry, last meeting and then, yeah.
Yep. As you're reading last time as a warning, now you're ready to adopt if you choose to do so.
So I move to adopt the residency policy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Oh, Daniel, I got that second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? No. Daniel, anything from you? Okay. Pat McLean, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Pat. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is a question over the budget. I'm sorry, I couldn't get my hand up quickly enough. But how many students does the budget pay for in terms of tuition?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so the budget is built with 22 students at this point in time. So it's the ones we know about, and then there's some what we call phantom students that protects the district for move-ins and that type of thing, which can happen.
Okay, so that covers all the students that are currently at Mountain School?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Michael Pelton?
I may have missed it, but just for clarity, do you have to adopt this budget as currently written, or because you've already adopted a budget is just a revision?
Sorry, you cut out on your last point. Michael.
You're muted, Michael.
Sorry. Yeah. So my question is does this budget have to be adopted so that it can be put on the warning, or is that already happened and I missed it because I stepped away for a second? Or
so we warned for a total amount, but the expenses and the revenues that we approved in previous meetings were adjusted. So it was really a matter of balancing the budget, but it's still the same amount that we warned for in the articles. Does that make sense?
very good. Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Cool.
I'm not sure if that's Russ or Joyce.
I just wanted to say, because it's a floor vote, the amount of the budget can be modified at the meeting on Saturday.
Correct. Thank you, Russ.
That's correct.
Okay, we're not seeing any.
And just can I ask a question for Lori, just since we're going back to the budget? What is the actual enrollment that we have currently?
15 at Townsend is what I'm aware of. Is that correct, Bob? 12, I'm sorry, 12 at Townsend. Yeah.
But I think we built it with the assumptions that there were trying to build in enough for all the students who were at the elementary school prior to the closure. And some potentials particularly if the private school element passes at your meeting to incorporate some of those students as well. And to that end, I just want to add to the budget comment, as Mike, I think Russ's point, I think was about the dollar amount can change at the floor vote. And that's an important distinction because when you're voting from the floor, you do have the ability to change, which means ideally you should not leave your meeting on that day without a budget, right? So yes. whether it goes lower, higher, or stays exactly the same, you should leave with a budget. If you do not, then because of the lateness of the vote, you're going to be in a jam at the end of June, where you will have to start a new fiscal year by borrowing the amounts, and the state allows you to borrow up to 87% of your previous year's operating budget. So you're going to not only be looking at interest on that, but also the potential to have to run a deficit because you're not going to have enough to pay your tuition bills when they come due. So, and that would only be in effect until you passed it. So if you pass on July 15th, then you might be pretty good. But people just should know that it's better to change it and pass it than it is to roll into July 1 without one. So just so people understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can just add quickly too, it also affects if you don't pass a budget right away and we go into the new year, that it also affects the town. And to be honest with you, I've never had a budget not passed by June 30th. So it would be new territory for me, but it's my understanding that, a tax rate is set. It's not the correct tax rate because you don't have a past approved budget. So it can mean either holding off sending out tax bills until you do have a budget, or having to revise tax bills. So just so everybody's aware of, it doesn't just affect the school district. So to Bob's point, don't leave the room until there's a budget passed.
and also if we're left with 87%, we need to account for that FY26 deficit of 30,000. So
right.
I mean, it all comes out of somewhere. So eventually the chickens will come home to roost, and the taxpayer will see it regardless. So I'd rather not go into a situation where we have debt service, and then we have to work multiple year plan. We have to pay interest. It becomes messy. So.
Excellent. So we kind of switched gears from the approving of or adopting of the residency policy. We had a motion on the table. We got into discussion. It's been seconded. And then some of that discussion led back to the budget, which is a very important topic, but I want to kind of bring us back to the motion that is on the table. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have adopted the residency policy. So that is done there. Approving
And by the-
financials. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
I was just going to say that in case Rory has to leave, I did send the draft off already.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And the approving financials. So I was able to take a look at that. I know I signed online. I don't know if either of you were able to look at that, if that is something we are motioning today. What is that number? I want to say it was 38, Lori. It could be wrong.
Yeah, where's the? I'm sorry.
It's number 34,
34.
and it was for $11,030.95.
Okay, so let's try this over again. I moved to approve pay order 34 in the amount of $11,030.95. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 I need to sign it online still.
Okay, motion passes. I don't know if you heard that, Lori, but Rory's got to sign that online. But we should be good for that. And now we are moving into new business. So principal report. You know, we have in here our mega packet. There's been lots of change going on. Here we go. Academic proficiency. So this came out on May 1st, 2024. We have completed our state testing and are planning and preparing for our local testing coming up on May 13th through the 31st. A big shout out to our students for persevering and doing their best through the lengthy state testing and the flexibility of our staff for making sure we gave students the environments and scheduled time needed for this. High quality staffing. K-8 teachers have dug into the new literacy curriculum recently at grade level meetings and are half day in service in April. We plan to keep digging in and become familiar with these materials at our next in-service on May 8th as well. School visits for teachers to CEL education in action are being planned for the week of May 13th. This is a great opportunity to connect with other schools using the program, see it in action in classrooms with students, and ask questions to help us prepare for next school year. Safe, healthy schools. We celebrated yet another all-school celebration with 4 corners in our multi-purpose room. Students and staff had a great time playing at this easy, active game together. Last month, we conducted our monthly drill and evacuated using our new Leland and Gray location and emergency buckets procedure. Students did a great job. Personalized learning. They're spending the rest of their enrichment budget to build up and continue the STEM work from this year by purchasing some Lego robotic kits for all ages and all students. These can be used for enrichment in small groups, classroom celebrations, student rewards, for behavior plans, etc. Important dates. Dino Man Returns was on the 7th. Also, in case I just want to add into this because this does impact towns and students. But some of the students from Windham participated with Representative Boss Lunn for the state mushroom. And on May 7th, Governor Scott signed that. So those students that were involved in that voting process were able to help make bill become law. So that was an exciting time. May 13th, Troy Wonderly Circus performance. May 17th, Upper Valley Aquatic Center K-5 field trip. June 3rd, Townsend Elementary School First Farm to Field Day. June 6th, National Honor Society Field Day at Leland and Gray with elementary schools. And June 11th is the 5th grade graduation. They have open positions available. They're looking for a principal, counselor in the hiring process for next year, and 2 librarians, which were reposted for the next school year. So that is the principal report. And I believe we're going to move on to you, Bob, for the superintendent report.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that you mentioned the principal vacancy there. Renee Maluzzi has been appointed to the position of curriculum coordinator under Jen. for the rollout of that EL literacy curriculum. And so that's the way the vacancy is coming from. She's not leaving the SU. She's just going to a different role. But the Townsend hiring committee is meeting on Tuesday with some interviews of some candidates. So we're moving forward. So my report, you have my May cabinet report where I mentioned Renee's promotion. And I mentioned that this is Teacher Appreciation Week, actually. And the SU did some work to travel to the schools and share some banners to celebrate their teachers and staff, and also some cookies we delivered yesterday to staff, courtesy of the SU. We wanted to make sure that people knew we appreciate them. At this point, you guys are the only district that's not passed the budget yet by the voters. River Valleys was the last one. They did theirs last week or a week and a half ago. So we're hopeful, and fingers are crossed for you guys. And then I just wanted to, I could take questions too, but I did want to just share a little bit of I want to sort of offer some clarification around my role and the SU roles and Lori's role, and just talk a little bit about the SU and what it is that we do, so that everyone's kind of on the same page. So as you guys know, districts are required to be part of either an SU or an SD, a supervisory district. Some places, usually they're towns or cities like Springfield, Hartford, Milton, they are their own SD. Some supervisory unions have merged into one board, and they are supervisory districts as well. We are a supervisory union, however, as you know. SUs or even SDs in those roles perform vital functions. Financial controls, as Laurie has talked about, accounts payable, receivable, payroll, budgeting, grant management, purchasing, et cetera. Employee management through human resources, building ops, what Greg does, information technology, food service, sometimes transportation, instruction coordination, and of course, special education services for your students. In addition, we provide support for the board through the superintendent's office and through the director of finance's office as well. Different districts at different times access these levels of support differently, but every district has some level of this. You guys are charged an assessment, and those assessments are driven really by two factors. One, the level of support that's needed. As an example, Stratton doesn't have a building, so building ops, they're not charged for that element of it. And same with IT, those sorts of things. But that's one factor, is what you're utilizing. And then the second factor is the percentage of the overall SU that your student body makes up. And as you can imagine, the Windham component of the SU is a very small percent, about 3%. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that the SU only gives Windham 3% of its time. Actually, in some cases, it's significantly higher. And this level of service and support ebbs and flows based on the needs. Like this year's been a tough year. Lots of things going on. So there's been a lot more time and energy than just the 3%, of course. And what that means is that, in a finite world, other districts have less support and service. And that will ebb and flow, as I'm sure will continue. But I do want to say that I think based on the amount of energy this year, my first year, that the SU office has put into the support of Windham, it's significantly higher, as you can imagine, than that 3%. And so I wanted to offer some suggestions to the board around how you guys can help us help you. And because the less strained we are with demands for things, the more readily accessible we are to support your work. And so there's two things I wanted to highlight. One, I wanted to highlight that in general, boards are making decisions about things in open session that they're then directing superintendent or director of finance to do for the next meeting, or to create some report for the next meeting. And those things that's common. Every district does that. There's always a suggestion. We'd like to see what the budget looks like if we tried this, or what if we did this, or so on and so forth. And those variations are absolutely part of our job. However, I would like to ask the board to consider that those requests come only through open session and only through the will of the board rather than through individuals, because it's not clear necessarily that all the time that those requests are coming from the will of the board. And so we want to try to narrow down the scope of the work that's being requested. So that's idea number one, is we would hope that things could flow through open sessions of the board and requests of the work. The second one is really more about the community. And, I can speak from my experiences with the folks in Windham. I've had a lot of really incredible conversations and exchanges with Windham residents, and have enjoyed all of the learning about the past history and everything else. But Lori and I also get a pretty significant amount of emails and questions from community members about things. And we would like to be able to say to community members that if they're looking for some information that has not been requested by the board, that we would like to direct them back to the board and have the board make those requests, which again will shave some of the requests that we're doing. We don't want to say no. We really don't. We want to be helpful. We want to be transparent. We want to be able to provide that information. But frankly, there's just so much right now in Windham, and has been for the last 6 months or so, that it takes its toll. And so some of you guys have seen as individuals is that sometimes we're not able to be as responsive to you as you would like at the board level, and probably at the community level too. But that's just because of the sheer volume and the other districts that we have to serve in the SU board as well. So those are my requests / suggestions. I say this because I want to quote the famous professor and author Brene Brown, who says that clear is kind. And I think I'm not sharing this to criticize or to try to get out of doing any of the work that we as an SU are obligated to provide for you and for your residents. But I want to be clear so that I can be kind to you, that the amount of work that we're doing is not commensurate with the percent of what Windham takes up for the SU. And so we're asking for some support from you guys as individuals, as collectives, and from the community to try to make that workload for us more commensurate with the student count that you guys have. And again, I'm not saying 3%. I'm just saying, can we get it lower than what it is? We're committed to helping you guys get through the challenges, getting a budget passed, figuring out what's happening with the building, and all the other things that you're going to be doing over the next year as you make this transition to non-operating. We're here to support you as we do with Stratton. And we hope that as we get to that place, that it'll be simpler and really calmer for everybody, and there'll be less angst around stuff. I can tell you that the Stratton board meetings sometimes are 15 minutes long. So a lot less angst. So that's my comments that I wanted to share out. I'm happy to take any questions about that. I do know that the SU board will be talking about that conceptually, not about Windham specifically, but just about sort of a workflow for the superintendent's office from boards. And so at their next meeting next week. So just so you guys are aware, that's going to be in conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate that. And I think it's going to be helpful for us too, because it is confusing when the public is reaching out to the SU about stuff that may be board related. And then it's very confusing how stuff can get kind of lost. So I definitely appreciate that. And we'll do our best to collaborate and support you guys as well. So thank you for that. So moving.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll just add that, my hope is that we can get, I don't know how to quantify 3%, but yeah, but it's not lost on me how much attention goes to Windham specifically. And I would like to see more ebb than flow when it comes to our proceedings. So yeah, I totally agree on both of your points.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And it does allow me to do other things, so things that I didn't get to this year, in my first year that I really wanted to do. It's just an example of principal supervision and evaluation process, which wasn't in existence. I wanted to create one and get it rolled out, and I just didn't have time. So some of that is me being year one, and some of it is the extra energy that went towards Windham. But like, other districts had challenges too. So it's the way it goes. But thank you. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
I appreciate your efforts.
And so where we would go next on the agenda is the security camera discussion. However, since the date was moved for the meeting to be June 8th, and just so that folks know, we looked at the 15th, we looked at the 22nd, we looked at other dates. This is really the safest date that we could come up with where it was flexible and everyone was available. So with that, our next scheduled board meeting wouldn't be until June 13th. Rory, is there a date between now and then, or Daniel, are we gonna do like an informational meeting prior to, like a special meeting just related prior to the vote? Or are folks, like, what are our thoughts on that before I move into that piece? Cause I think I can see Rory packing up over here, so.
Yeah, I like my calendar.
Well, I remember at least with the special meeting when we had Mark, there was a lot of good information there. And I do intend to get some of that information out through school board updates, kind of common questions that have been asked and things like that. So I think we could do stuff outside of special meeting. But that said, if we really do have, because the guidance that I've gotten is around Australian ballot, is that it is possible, but I'm not sure with the timeline if we can do it. I'm very interested in Australian ballot. I think it makes this whole process more democratic and makes it easier for everyone.
It would be very easy, and I agree with that 100%. However, my concern with just making sure worst case scenario we're covered, because we really do not have much wiggle room. So,
and my understanding with that is that if we do Australian ballot, we do have the option. If we do Australian ballot, we have to have an informational meeting. I guess I could Google around. I don't know how sound that is, for like
we would have to have a
legality.
meeting to make the change if something was to come up, right? So at that meeting, we would definitely change something. But what I'm looking at is vote day on the 8th.
Yeah.
Are we going to try, if that is the plan, to have a special meeting, of which case would we be looking to do that on a Thursday? Would we be looking to do that on a different day? Because the 23rd and the 30th, I think, Daniel, you're not, whoops, I'm jumping too far here, the 8th. So the 30th, you're not around, Daniel, I don't believe.
So I have a work trip
Yeah.
from the 3rd to the 7th. So I'll be doing a red eye to get in for the 8th on the vote.
But you're talking about a special meeting.
But I'm just talking about like a special meeting, like an informational meeting that would, if you guys think that we should be doing that, I think it would, there's definitely a lot of questions that can go on.
I really think an informational meeting is a good idea.
Ren, can you raise your hand? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
So there are folks that do have their hands raised. We will be calling on people in just a moment. I just want to kind of get a date set between Daniel and Rory so that we can move forward
For an informational meeting.
Sorry,
Excuse me.
Abby, just a quick question. Do you want Lori in attendance at a special meeting if there's budget questions?
That would be fabulous. Is Lori still on, or did she?
She's still on. So as you talk about dates, just keep her in mind.
Definitely. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Lori, I guess, what is your availability if we were to do some type of informational meeting prior to the 8th vote? Is there an ideal or?
I mean, I can be available. I can be available that week, but you're gone. I mean, it depends on whether you need to be there or not. I mean, if it's budget questions, I'm certainly able to answer those, but I can be available pretty much all that June 3rd through the 7th week, except for the 7th. The 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. We may have a meeting on the 3rd, probably a River Valley's meeting. Yes, Bob, I think. Yes, so Tuesday would work fine. Tuesday the 4th or the 6th would be my preference, or would work the best for me.
So to recap, the 3rd or the 6th would be good. So even if I'm in Portland, I could do a later meeting. If we did something like starting at 6, I know it's not preferable, maybe, but I think I could swing that. Oh wait, the time difference. Crap, because I would be 3 hours behind. Yeah, I think if
You
we
really need to sleep, Daniel, do you?
Well, it'll be us. It'll be no one.
well, no, it would be the opposite.
I know.
So I would
But then
be in
it'd be the
middle.
very next day also taking a red-eye flight, so poor guy.
Yeah, I would be in the middle of a work week.
Sure.
Can we do the week before, perhaps?
But the 20, whoops,
The 29th through the 3rd?
Okay, so the 28th is good for me.
Okay.
But that's probably, is that Memorial Day? No, that's
Tuesday
Tuesday,
after.
28th. 28th is good. Or if you wanted to go to the 30th, 30th is also fine in the late afternoon, evening.
30th is not good for me.
okay, 30th's no go for Rory. Is the 28th a good for you, Daniel?
Yeah, I think the 28th would work.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
So-
Sorry, guys. I just
No, I
forgot.
just wanted to nail the date down here. So May 28th will be a special meeting. And that we'll just hold to talk about just budget stuff, so we can do that, but that way it's clear. What's that, Sue? What time will the meeting be at? I think that's gonna be 6-4. Rory, Lori, does that make a difference?
Or 5:28,
No, it's fine.
anytime for me, I think. Yeah, I don't have anything to that Tuesday.
Okay,
Whenever it's convenient for the public, since it is a public informational meeting.
And Bob, would you be able to attend? Okay, cool.
so Daniel, are you around on the 28th? If we do a 6 PM, are you available?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I'm good for that
So,
day.
so 6 PM for the informational meeting on Tuesday, May 28th.
Yeah, that works.
That good? You got that one? Thank you, Sue.
I
Okay,
saw,
so,
I saw a hand up, Ellen.
yes, Ellen had her hand up, and then I think Michael Pelton had their hand up. I wrote it down, so.
And then Ren also had their hand up
And
after.
Ren, so,
Oh, okay,
don't
never mind.
see them up now. Ellen, are you still on?
I am.
Okay, your hand was raised, Ellen.
I took it down because I was just gonna remind you, if you do go to Australian ballot, it's my understanding, you have to have that informational meeting within 10 days. And I was looking at the calendar and counting, and that is within 10 days. The only thing I've been able to find out for sure so far is the absentee voting for a municipal election using Australian ballot. If you decide to go that way, the ballots have to be ready 20 days prior to the election, which would be 10 days from now.
Yeah, right, okay.
And that's just a matter of, we have to get them typed up and copied. But we don't have to mail them. That was optional. And during COVID, I think the state paid for mailing for one vote, and I think another vote, the town paid it, but it's not required normally.
Thank you, Ellen. Michael Pelton, your hand was up? Did we lose Michael? You might not be on.
I'm good. No, I had the same thoughts as Ellen, basically.
Oh, okay, excellent, thank you. And Ren, your hand was also up.
Yeah, I just wanted to push for an informational meeting happening, so it's going to happen, so we're good, and it's on a Tuesday, so.
Go team. All right, sounds good. Okay.
Abby,
Oh, Sue, pray. Yes, go ahead.
why did I think at your last meeting, the lawyer spoke to this, like, kind of rush vote? And yes, it could be Australian.
So my understanding is with that we were looking at, and again, lots of information coming in from various sources. So people saying at town meeting, it was decided that there wouldn't be Australian ballot for only for officials, or a special meeting regarding officials, not a revote. But then there's also this COVID kind of special pocket we kind of fit into that we could potentially also do Australian ballot. But all the timeline with that was, we initially wanted to have the vote, so if anything happened, we had time to try to do something different. So clearly with that not working and rewarning for this, to make sure we're perfectly within the timeline for the vote in the meeting house, should we have to have it in the meeting house, will be set. If we're able to do Australian ballot, and it sounds more and more like that's a possibility, we can make that change and do that. But if we can't, we need to get the stuff warned today. So I know it's very confusing, but does that kind of clarify it a little bit?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess.
So, yeah, it's
No, I understand there's a lot of factors, but I thought, like, it was the last few things the lawyer said.
was what to
That we could vote, it could be Australian ballot, it could be within a shorter period of a 30-day.
I think it was also, if there was with Australian ballot, it would have set it out to a later date. And we were trying to get it so we could have multiple votes. Does that make sense? Instead of having the one vote. So that might have played into it, was if we did the timeline and the Australian ballot, when it was questionable, was it even possible? So there was all that kind of being looked into. So
one negative thing though about Australian ballot is if we, like how Bob brought up and Russ, that if the budget fails and then we're at that
we can't amend it,
87%,
right?
we don't have the opportunity to be able to change it on the floor. So
Right.
so that's the only thing. So
we're warning it for floor vote for today, but if it is possible, and we feel confident that we can get that through, I mean, the most important thing is we pass a budget. That's, I mean, we can't emphasize that enough. That's incredibly important. The kids in the community, I mean, they're getting tuition. They need to go. We need to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for extra expenses that are unnecessary. But we can get into that later. We still have one more item on the agenda before we adjourn. And Rory's heading out, so you're gonna swing by next door and sign? Okay. And Ellen, Rory's headed over, to sign that, and it looks like your hand is up.
My hand is up. Yes, and okay, I will find that and get it printed, and so she can, hopefully by the time she gets here. I did want to say that if you are considering going to Australian ballot, I would recommend that you get in touch with Jenny Prosser, who's general counsel in the Secretary of State's office, to find out if that's legal, and if so, how do what steps you have to take to change that.
Right.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you very much.
what is their name? Can you spell it for me?
Jenny Prosser. She was in her.
Can you spell Prosser? I'm sorry.
Prosser.
Okay.
Yeah. Her information was in an email that y'all were all sent.
Okay. But yeah, let me reach out.
That Bob Fisher had me forward to you.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Rory, if you can still hear me.
Oh, she's gone.
Okay, well, never mind.
Okay, so moving on to the security camera discussion. So that is, I was able to get access to the security camera. There are questions as to, there was a DVR set up, that's also supervised currently through, the supervisory union. What the differences are, I'm not sure. So I'm just kind of wanted to have the discussion, and so we can maybe have some plans on making sure whatever the path is moving forward with that, that we're kind of at least heading down the correct path with questions and stuff. So,
Yep, I've talked with IT and talked through a little bit some of the options, so I can give you some information.
awesome.
So you guys have currently a system where the cameras are attached to a server at Leland and Gray, which houses all the SU cameras all in one system. What you've been given access to is a single login to your email, Abby, that gives you access to was it 3 or 4 cameras on site there, right? So that is based on the premise that a couple of things. One, that you're continuing to pay into the information technology assessment, because I'm talking about after July 1 is where I'm going with this longer term. Because those cameras have licensing fees that are done annually and they're paid through the end of this fiscal year, through the end of June. But in order to re-up those, obviously the district or the SU is charged. We do it as a bulk. But we can take your, if you're re-upping that with us, then you would have some level of assessment for that expense, obviously, through your budget. Maybe Lori already included that. She can speak to that. We talked about the benefits of keeping that system up and running from the standpoint of while you still own the building, and while insurance is covered for the building by Visbit, having the camera system up, obviously, I think there's some advantages to that, having that coverage. If you chose to leave that system, you do have an old DVR system, which is in your building. I think it's in the back room somewhere, that we can reconnect those cameras to that particular DVR system, which would make them more local based rather than network based. And I believe, and I guess I don't remember the exact answer what Matt said, whether we would have a cheaper licensing fee to do that, or whether, because you already own the cameras and Windham bought the cameras, it wasn't the SU that bought them, you guys bought them as a district, that you could maybe go away from the licensing fees and just use the DVR. The problem with the DVR is you have to be physically there versus you can do your analysis remotely, right, from logging in. So like there's advantages, disadvantages to each, and some of it will depend on what the level of engagement you want to have with the SU around information technology. I don't know if Lori can tell us what was in the budget and what she has for an assumption in there. But that might help determine whether or not we're renewing those cameras or whether IT comes up and reconnects them to your DVR system.
Okay. Perfect. And so Daniel, can we make sure, not for the special meeting, but for our next meeting on the 13th, if we can make sure to add that, because I would like to, probably through correspondence, Bob, I will, just because of the sensitivity of the discussions, probably send you some email with regarding more information, or maybe you can give me the IT person's email, whatever's easiest for you, just to know like the capability of, I'm gonna have to find it if it's here in the building. So are you sure that it's here in the building, the DVR?
I believe that it's already there. I forget the name of the system, but it's already existing. They would just switch over the wiring back to that and take it off the network. So, and IT could do that for you. We wouldn't charge you for that. That would just be a switch over.
Yeah, I just want to, not knowing what that unit is, it's hard to make that decision and its
Right.
capabilities. So I want to dig into that, but I do think it's with
and it's a little bit older. It's a little bit
Yeah.
older because it was obviously purchased when the cameras were purchased, and then the cameras were tied to the system later on. But yeah, I think maybe I can connect you with Matt Martin, who can give you some more specifics around it. Although Lori unmuted, so she might have some of the budget side information of all this as well.
And when you connect, Abby, can you CC me or the rest of the board?
Of course. Yes.
Thank you.
So I took all IT assessment out of the budget that we just reviewed. So there's nothing in there for that. I don't think it's a significant amount of money for the licensing to maintain that at the SU level, but it would be we would just bill you whatever that fee would be. So that is not in the budget though. I don't think it's a significant amount of money though.
Okay, would that be under admin technology services? Is that what?
So that's where you were paying the assessment under admin technology. You can see it's a 0.
Yeah.
So I took all that out because, typically that's, somebody working with teachers and students and, on your hardware and all of that. So that's where that assessment comes from. But Matt can probably give you a number as to what it would cost, and it would just be an addition,
Okay, so
an invoice too.
So it'd be out of like the bigger chunk of like SU assessments. Is that right? Like if we had it. And I'm just looking at previous budget numbers right now because I see like 19,000 for like FY24.
It's in that number for 24. Yes. Currently what's happening now, that part of your cameras is all part of that technology assessment now.
Okay, so if we were going to not do the DVR and continue with Leland Gray, we'd probably have to bake that back in, whatever that amount is.
Not the full amount. No, I would work with Matt to find out what. I mean, it wouldn't be $19,000.
Oh yeah, no.
It's
I hope not.
God, it was like several hundred. It was like maybe $300 to $500 total.
I was thinking, 200 a camera kind of sticks in my brain, but I don't have that number exactly. So that would just be an invoice from the SU to Windham for that, to keep the yearly license going on that.
And so, related note to that, where's Wi-Fi fit into that? If they're not paying the IT assessment, is Wi-Fi still on or is the Wi-Fi off?
So the Wi-Fi is on. So that is a contract actually that Windham School has with First Light for their internet services. They also receive a discount, which I do have to look into. I have not been able to have time to do that, but they receive a discount from, it's USAC. It's a federal government, schools and libraries get a discount. But the fact that you are technically a public library too, right? Windham School is, so it may be okay that you don't lose your discount, but that internet is built into the budget that we just looked at.
Yep. Yeah, along with telephone and voice and everything else.
Yeah, all of that remains the same.
And a copier.
Yeah, the copier will come out because we are switching copiers. So we could probably look at that line. We could have looked at that line item. We just barely started looking at changing out our copiers because the leases are coming up. So we're working with a firm that's basically a purchasing cooperative to look at all the copiers in the SU. So I did not have them quote a copier for Windham, knowing that you probably weren't going to have a school. So
yeah.
But I can have them do that if you want to keep a copier there.
But that expense is also not baked into the current budget that's presented, right?
Right.
Yes.
So do you get that, Abby, that if we didn't do the DVR, essentially we need to bake in, I don't know, 200 per camera?
So, yep, I hear that. So that's a lot more digging to do. But neither here nor there. We'll make sure it's on the agenda to discuss for what we're looking for on the June 13th meeting.
And Abby, just to ask you, the login that you received, is it fairly self-evident how to navigate that? You don't need any support. Okay.
Actually, I would take somebody's information because I do have questions. But it's very user-friendly.
Okay.
So
cool.
Would that still be Matt for that same thing, or is that a different person?
That would still be Matt. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So
Hey, I know it's not on the agenda, but it's related to IT. And I know your preference is to open session for questions to you directly. We previously talked about computers, one for minute taker, one to stay with the building, and then one that could I don't know, be floated with the board or provided. Do you have any updates there?
Yeah, I mean, again, because IT is coming out of your assessment, it does make it a little bit trickier. And
Okay.
that there's no other boards who receive, or minute takers who receive machines. That being said, I think we could leave a Chromebook up there for you guys as a building-based device. They're not crazy expensive. We won't bill you for it. I think we could leave that up there and just a little parting gift from the IT department, perhaps. But I think, the one request was, machines for each board member and the minute taker, and one to stay there. And I think, given that you're not going to have an assessment and not paying into the assessment starting on July 1, it feels like that might not be appropriate.
Okay.
But I can get a Chromebook up there, which will have a login, and you guys can either give it to the minute taker or keep it in the building. The minute taker can use it when you're doing minutes. If that person's live, I don't know if they are or not for you, but yeah, you can. I'm happy to have Matt bring one up. And that actually reminds me, the keys that were left up there, I believe that's all of them with the exception of, well, Greg and I still have ours, but I believe there's 2 others that are not accounted for. And I believe Matt's is one of them and Jen's is the other. And they just weren't available for me today to grab them from them. So if I do send Matt up to either meet with you, Abby, to look at the DVR and kind of walk you through that and give you some support, he can bring those 2 keys and the Chromebook at the same time.
That would be fabulous. Go team. All right.
That works.
Awesome. I've got nothing else. I think anything I have for questions, I could probably deal with correspondence with Matt. Anything else with that, Daniel, that you have concerns about? No?
I think it's good.
Perfect. Moving on. It is 5:22. I motion that we adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's still light outside, folks. All right. I hope everyone enjoys their day. Thank you very much for being here. And I look forward to seeing folks at the special meeting on Tuesday, May 28th at 6 p.m. It'll be in person and in Zoom, I believe.